You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm glad that you're here with us. We have a great show planned for you today on this Thursday, October the 3rd, 2024. We're ready to get rocking right here on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio, streaming live at cklu.ca. Just click on the Radio Player Canada app, and you can stream us. Download it, take us with you, and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. And while you're there, just see if you can check out some of the merch and see if maybe a t-shirt would be a great idea, or a mug or a hat or something, and help support the station. And you can look really cool around the community wearing whatever it is that you bought from our merch section on our website. And if you already have the merch, or you don't really need any of the things that we're offering to help support the station, you can just click on the donate button, and whatever it is that you're able to donate, we really appreciate it. It's the way that we're able to keep the lights on, keep the airwaves open. It is Sudbury's campus and community radio station, been around since 1984. And we're also streaming live, the show it is, on facebook.com/Sudbury News and youtube.com/Sudbury News. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the channel and the page. We really appreciate doing that, as it will then get the show known to other people that may not know that we're here. We've been on air a little over 2.5 years now, and yeah, we have a really great, strong bunch of people that come on each and every day, and it's growing all the time. And so we just want to do our best to get the word out there to grow the little community bigger and bigger each and every day, because what we do is we discuss the news and the issues that are important to us through the lens of local journalist outlets, local news outlets, organizations. And we've created a website due to the legislation of our federal government, which now makes it impossible to share news on the most widely used social media platform, Facebook, and also Instagram, which Meta owns both of those. So anything Meta related are not able to share news or post news for that matter. And if you go to any of the news outlets on Facebook, you'll see it says no longer available. It reminds you of something, particular communistic or something. Now, they said they've made these legislations or policies or whatever to help local journalists. I don't really see how that's helping in any way, shape, or form, but it wouldn't be the first time the government's said they were going to do something that helps you when it actually has the opposite effect. One might think it's done on purpose, even if we didn't know any better, right? They were really trying to help local journalists, and then all of a sudden their Facebook pages are wiped out. So thanks for help. Thanks a lot for the help. We really appreciate it. Continue to help us in any way, shape, or form. If that's the kind of help that we get, continue, because it's really helping things. That's sarcasm, by the way. And we're grateful for the platform Facebook, because we are able to stream live for some strange reason. As we're talking about the news, we're not able to share news, but we're able to talk about it for now until that gets taken off. I'm not sure when that day's going to come. It should come, I'm thinking, sooner than later. But make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow. But mainly, comment, because we'll do our best to get your comments read for those listening, up on the screen for those watching. And today's going to be a great show, so I know there's going to be a lot of great things to cover, and you'll have a lot to say about these things. We're going to be talking about, the last 4 years and things that we were told that were good for us when maybe they weren't. And then there were people saying they weren't good at the time, and they were demonized and alienated and to some extent lost their jobs and ostracized and, kicked out of their families, even in some cases, or whatever. So it was very controversial. Our whole medical system, political system, media, how everybody was complicit in this narrative that safe and effective were the terminologies that we were told of what we were told we needed to take, and not have anonymity over our own bodies, or whatever, have the ability to choose for ourselves what we do in terms of our medical decisions with our own bodies. Our body, our choice did not apply in this particular case. So we'll get a little bit more into that today. We'll look at a few local news headlines, and we'll start off with a little bit of weather, and we may have a little sports segment this morning. First time in a while, but as the Sudbury Wolves and the Sudbury Five are kicking off their seasons, I think it's just appropriate to go over a little bit of sports happening in our community. So we'll dive right in with some sports after the weather. We'll be back right after this with your comments, news headlines, and more. Stay tuned. And Sudbury weather brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. Currently is 11 degrees. It's clear, mainly sunny today. Moderate wind, high of 21, UV index 4 or moderate. Tonight, partly cloudy, low of 6. And then Friday, sunny in the morning, then a mix of sun and cloud with a 30% chance of showers in the afternoon, high of 17, UV index 3 or low. 30% chance of showers tomorrow, high of 17. Sunny and 18 on Saturday. 17 and showers on Sunday, 10 and 40% chance of showers on Monday, high of 10 as well and cloudy on Tuesday, and 13 is your high on Wednesday, cloudy as well. Look at your satellite, mostly clear, and that's what we'll be getting today as the weather moves from the west to the east. You can see a lot of clearing there, so we'll be able to enjoy the sun tomorrow. That's your weather brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with a little bit of sports for you for the first time in a while. And then we'll have Billy on the show, who's sitting patiently beside me wanting to chime in on the discussion today because we got a lot to say, and I'm sure you do too. So stay tuned. It's going to be great. And the Sudbury Wolves, they've already played 2 games in their season. They've lost the first home opener here in town against Barrie, a score of 3-1, and then they won in the Sioux the following day, score of 6-3, and then they have another home game this Friday here in town against the Peterborough Petes, game time 7:05, and then they're in action in Barrie. They're heading to Barrie the following day. Against the Colts, who they lost their first game to, so it's a bit of a rematch. This Saturday, you can catch both of those games right here on CKLU 96.7 FM. And then our Sudbury Five, they sent out a press release, a news release, basically saying they're back in action, and that will be, I guess their first game will be November the 23rd, and it'll be against the Montreal Tundra. So they've released their 2024-25 regular season schedule. It has 17 home games. And they're also excited to share some big news that Dwayne Notice is back with the team for another season. Sorry about the pronunciation of the name. Maybe Billy knows more how it's pronounced because he was basically at most of those games last year.
I haven't heard it yet. So.
Okay. So they're excited. You can tell. All the coach, general manager, Logan Stutz, he's excited. Everyone's excited. New season memberships are now on sale. Secure your seats by visiting the Sudbury Arena box office, purchasing your tickets online at greatersudbury.ca/tickets. For any inquiries, reach out to the ticketing team at tickets@swse.ca or visit the5.ca. We'll be back with news, headlines, your comments, more after this. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back, and we have Billy here, so we'll get him up on the screen. We also want to give some shout outs to people that are already joining us this morning. Great to see a good group of you on this Thursday. Billy, how are you doing today?
Good.
And I was really excited last night when we were talking if you were able to be on the show. As you could tell, I'm always excited as you are to have you here, and our listeners and viewers as well. And hopefully we'll have you back on more of a regular basis going forward after the summer.
That's hopefully.
Yeah, and we got a great discussion this morning. We collaborated a bit last night and speaking about what we should talk about, and it kind of organically fell together, things that I was hoping to talk about.
As soon as you mentioned it, it was like, I'm in.
Yeah, and you had a few videos of your own to say, hey, I can contribute to the discussion, and so we're going to have a great one coming up on what I mentioned before, what we've gone through over the past 4 years or so, and now some I guess light. We've had some light, I guess, or just new information that have come to light.
Optimistic developments. If you look at it that way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a pessimistic developments, I'm sure, from another perspective, but at least I think it's, moving the world in the right direction. So
yeah, clarity, if we will, on the whole subject, and people that were a part of it that at the first, and some things that were done with media, with our medical establishments, with our governments. Everyone seemed to be on the same page without really thinking things through. It seemed as though.
Yeah.
But
well, we got a glimpse at kind of how things work, and then when it's like, oh, that this can be like this. The reality is not like it was presented.
Yeah.
And I think you can sort of transpose that into a lot of areas of the world. And you can, and I think that's once we get more aware of how this can happen and how to prevent it. So. Oh,
for sure. Like it was like a big psychological experiment or something that I felt I was in over the last 4 years, because I was like, do I have a brain? Like things aren't in the media and in our government and in the medical world doesn't seem to be really, there's no common sense or something. Someone's lost their marbles according to what I feel like.
Two options. You go along or you get canceled and fired.
Yeah, you say, wait a minute, do we have to, hey, shut up, this is the right thing. Yeah, but I thought I could think with my brain. I thought that's why I had one. But anyways, now there's some things coming to light that we'll be able to talk about today that kind of vilify, if you will. Is that the word?
Vindicate. Yeah.
Vindicate. Vilify is the opposite.
Yeah, quit it.
Vindicate some of the things we suspected all along. But anyway, so Nana, good morning. Blessings to all. Good morning, everyone. And good morning to you, Nana, on YouTube. Judy on Facebook, good morning to you. Monique on Facebook as well. Sunshine emoji. The glasses smiley emoji. I appreciate that one. Marianne, good morning to you. Liked and shared as usual in chilly Barrie. It's chilly here in Sudbury as well. And good morning to you, Belinda. Pay attention to whom your energy increases and decreases around, because that's the universe giving you a hint who you should embrace or stay away from. That is true. I looked at it in terms, I guess, at some point in my life, as there are spirit givers and there are spirit suckers. Like those, and I guess if you look at it in terms of energy, there are those you're around who seem to energize you, and there are people around you that deplete your energy. And it's just, it is what it is. And that's true. We need to pay attention to that. And the more we can at least have people that energize us, it seems like, and sometimes maybe people that do deplete our energy from time to time need our energy. So it's something we have to figure out on our own.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to
We have
totally
to be able
oust
to
yourselves.
develop ourselves too, to be able to
Yes, exactly.
resist or at least counter or
Yeah.
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 Or help.
So something to think about though, right? Obviously.
Yeah, totally speaking my language though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Belinda says, Speaker of the House Greg Fergus is freezing all government bills until the SDTC document are given to the RCMP. Could this be the beginning of the downfall of Trudeau? Dun, 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 dun. We'll see. Inquiring minds want to know. Thanks for that, Belinda. And David, good morning. Take care. Stay safe. Pat, good morning, y'all. Smiley emoji. Good morning, Pat. And Abel. Appreciate that. Thanks for being on, Abel. I'm not sure if I can decipher that too much, but let's see. I predict the show being cut short this morning with 2 exclamation points. Possibly.
I was thinking about that too.
Possibly. And good morning, Abel, by the way. And that's an interesting name, right? Abel Kane. Instead of Cain Abel, right? Same thing. Same people. You might remember them. Belinda, these people that refused and held their ground should be immensely proud of themselves. They stood up to the biggest psyop in history. We will get to that, and I think I'm on the same page as you. Liette, good morning, everyone from Collingwood. Thanks for being with us, Liette. And Marianne, not too far away from you. Let's hope it's about time, for sure, that some of this information gets out. And a few new people on this morning, which I'm grateful for. Rick, good morning, everyone. And good morning to you, Rick. Thanks for being on. Belinda, good morning, Billy. Good morning, Billy. Marianne, good morning, Billy. Monique.
Morning.
There's a lot of morning Billies. And Evelyn, good morning. What's the subject today? Yes, we've been talking about that. And Debbie, good morning to you. And Lise, for some reason, last show as well, for some reason your comment wasn't coming in, but I knew you were commenting because your name's there. I think you did have an emoji come through, but your comments didn't. But good morning, Lise, nonetheless. Oh my, so true. Spirit givers and spirit suckers. So that is Natty or Nady. I'm not sure. Tomato, thanks for being on. I hope you're having a great morning. Monique, grand rising, exclamation points and a heart emoji. And yes, Lise, good morning. It did come through. That's great. So your text do work. So thankful for that. Okay, some local news. Then we're going to dive right into our main subject, our deep dive, if you will, today. Because we got 10, it's 10 to 8, and we'll have about 40 minutes, which is great. So look up Coniston Valley's aerial seeding program underway again. Residents in the eastern parts of the city might see low-flying helicopters in the coming days. So that's coming from our Sudbury.news aggregator, which aggregates CBC, CTV, Sudbury.com, Sudbury Star, all into one page. See, I was... Okay, so
what did
here
they
we
seed
go.
there? Is it grass, some kind of...
The regreening, it's part of the regreening still that continues to happen here in the city. It didn't, even though we've gone from looking like the moon to actually green, we're still adding green to the area, right? So we're getting to the point where I knew we had some stories here from yesterday, but we have a lot of, there's this murder trial going on where a senior was stabbed on Kathleen. I don't know if you've heard anything about that. It happened in 2020.
I think I remember the headline.
And so it's going to court now. The first time the jury heard the details surrounding the stabbing death of the senior on Kathleen. I was reading more about that. Apparently, there was a family member who would bring dinners to this senior every Christmas, was wanting to bring Christmas dinner over, and they had it all ready to go. Called him, didn't answer the phone. Were worried about him, but he said he's going to have somebody over to join him for dinner. And I guess that particular person stabbed over 100 times. That's pretty over the top and sad. So there's going to be more on that coming out in the near future. So if you have a complaint about these counselors, they want your name. This is an interesting story from Sudbury.com. A motion calling for an end to anonymity might be deemed redundant by the provincial the Municipal Act, which supersedes City Council decisions, and City Integrity Commissioner David Begoisian interprets as giving him the power to grant anonymity at his discretion. So it looks like the 4 councillors were on the picture anyways here. If I show the screen large, is Mike Perrant, Natalie Labby. That's Mike, Ward 1 councillor. I know his name, and then Fortune from Azilda area and downtown as well. Pauline. So here we go. So there's these 4 councillors, right? Mark Signoretti. Sorry, I know Mark. I know you. You know I know you. So I know your name. It's just in the morning sometimes. So if you file a complaint against a city member or city council member with the city's integrity commissioner, a group of at least 4 of the city's elected officials want to know your name. In addition to prohibiting the anonymity currently granted, they also want everything that complainants send to the city integrity commissioner to be sent directly to them, which is interesting, right? A motion to this effect was filed by Ward 5 Councillor Mike Perrant, Ward 7 Councillor Natalie Labby, Ward 5 Councillor Pauline Fortin, and Ward 1 Councillor Mark Signoretti, to be voted on during City Council's October 8th meeting. However, the motion passes on. If it passes, it might not matter on October the 8th. The Municipal Act says that I get to decide what is and not confidential with respect to my investigation, said the Integrity Commissioner of the city, David Begoisian. He told that to Sudbury.com. That said, he clarified that City Council members may not appreciate that I read that is giving me an overriding power to grant anonymity. Okay.
That's a tough one because you really want to know what's being said about you so you can defend it, I guess, would be their position.
Says, but I do agree it should be an exception and not a norm. The Municipal Act dictates that the Integrity Commissioner shall preserve secrecy with respect to all matters that come to his or her knowledge in the course of his or her duties. The Act also provides exceptions to this, allowing the Commissioner to disclose information as in the Commissioner's opinion is necessary. The Municipal Act is provincial legislation which overrides anything the city's elected officials decide. The Councillor's motion makes no mention of the Municipal Act or its potential for making their motion inactionable. For his part, Bogosian believes anonymous complaints should be the exception. I do think anonymous complaints should be the exception rather than the norm for accountability for the complainant and in fairness for the councillors. Right? Like it's true. Like if you have a bunch of anonymous complaints against you, you can't really substantiate it. You don't really know if it's something that's real or not. And we know that just recently we've had a couple of councillors come under fire and scathing reports from our integrity commissioner, and they were calling for, pay cuts and things like that, penalties with their pay and stuff. So I don't know. I think that's, it's true. I don't think Yeah, it's like when you hear a story where someone's name's getting dragged through the mud in the media or whatever. Someone's accused of something horrendous, and it's from an anonymous source.
Mm-hmm.
You then wonder, okay, well, is that person legit or not? Or is it someone who just has an agenda against somebody else filing these complaints, right?
You know, and that's the thing, when there's a lot of, I guess, heated between different members, and if you have different kind of little factions wanting to take another one down, you could sort of get a little bit of like lawfare type things going on. And so,
well, I love transparency myself. The more transparent, the better. And I think, like Boghossian was saying, he thinks it should be the exception and not the rule, that anonymous complaints need to be the exception. It should just be here and there. But I guess the counselors want to see who's making these complaints. What are they saying? You know, and to a large degree, I think they are right. But again,
yeah, I mean, there could be like
there's
abuse
whistleblowers too
in both, you know, both sides of that. Because you know, I can see a need for anonymity in some cases.
If you're a whistleblower, let's say, and your job is on the line, or whatever.
Yeah. Or obviously a complaint forward, you know, you're the only one involved. Is whether you're anonymous or not, it's going to get pointed to you. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how that goes forward in the future. There is a couple things we wanted to get to today, and that is what we were talking about earlier on in the show, that some information has come to light over the last little bit about, you know, what people have come to know very predominantly in our society, that there's been a shift a few years ago. I think it started with the election of Donald Trump pretty much in the United States, where we really see this division between two main groups of people. And then within there can be divisions as well. But it seems like there's like a people are kind of divided into polarized, left and right, if you will, to a large extent. And even, like I say, within there's other factions as well. But something like we were told when 4 years ago, that there was the boogeyman that we knew that was out there, and then there was a solution to the boogeyman, and you needed to take this solution, and or you could lose your job. You would be ostracized from your family. You couldn't visit certain people, loved ones. If you didn't, you couldn't go into certain restaurants. You couldn't do a lot of things. And we saw something that was pretty scary going on. But now things have kind of come to light where people that were even part of the solution, making it, advocates for it, now begin to see some things that they're questioning, and big time. And one of those are a gentleman by the name of Brett Weinstein. You may have heard of him. He wrote a book actually saying one of the main things, there were three really great things that mankind has made in the last, I don't know, 100 years or 200 years or so.
I think medical achievements.
Medical achievements, exactly. Because he's what's his...
yeah, something to do, I don't know, biophysicist maybe, something like that.
He's an extremely smart guy, put it that way, and you'll know.
Well educated.
Because we have a clip from him basically saying what we're saying, that he has kind of, you know, uncovered things over time that were pretty scary to him. And
he made a lot of assumptions about the way things were, and then this whole event eventually led him down to take a look at the actual body of evidence. So
exactly. So without further ado, Brett Weinstein.
My position has moved because this has forced me to learn about the reality of how these products are produced, which I'm now embarrassed to say I had simply assumed that they were produced in a reasonable fashion, that the level of corruption was sort of human scale, that, you know, that there would be embarrassing things in it, there would be dangers that hadn't been confessed. But I was shocked to discover the level at which the safety work simply had not been done, which has now been acknowledged by, one of the leading proponents
Emily
of
Blockton.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, my position has moved because it was predicated on bad assumptions about what these inoculations were.
I mean, to the point, and some people, I'm sure you get accused, oh, he's a shill, he's working for the other side. I mean, the book you published lists in the sort of top 3 great achievements in science, vaccines.
One of the 3 great, the point that we make in the book
Yeah.
is that medicine is a very mixed bag. There's a lot of harm to be done, that there are 3 great achievements. And the 3 great achievements that Heather and I list are surgery, vaccination, and antibiotics. And that was a book that we completed in 2019, right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
The mechanisms that are employed by vaccine manufacturers and the methods used to test or really to obscure safety signals make the products invalid from the get-go.
Yeah.
When I at the beginning of the pandemic, I did not really know what an adjuvant was. At the moment I discovered that we were using a trick to hyperactivate the immune system in order to make the vaccine work, my thought was, how could that possibly be safe?
Right.
And what does it have to do with all of the allergies that we scratch our heads over?
Right.
It doesn't make sense that
You're inciting the immune system, the body, toxins, into inflammation. I mean, in a world
Right.
where inflammation is the bad guy, this product's designed to cause inflammation in order to work.
in a totally non-specific way. And what's more, let's take the aluminum that is currently the
Yeah.
favorite adjuvant. If you're going to inject somebody with aluminum to hyperactivate their immune system in order to get it to respond to an antigen that you've put in a shot that it won't respond to under ordinary circumstances, there should be a long list of instructions that come with that. Here are the things that you should avoid eating for the next 2 weeks or a month. Here are the seasons in which we are not going to give you this shot because ragweed is blooming. I don't know what the instructions would be exactly,
Right.
but there would be instructions about how to minimize the likelihood of triggering the immune system to react to something that is not a pathogen where you will suffer for the rest of your life for its reactivity. And I've never heard those instructions.
And this is what I love about what you do. And for me, you have given me new ways of getting an idea across, or even understanding something that I've been saying in a deeper way. But essentially, what you're saying, so that people understand this, is that the vaccine is almost like it opens. Like if there's a lock on the coding of your computer, it opens it up. So at this point, anything's allowed to come in and rewrite onto your software. You're creating this opening so that if you're breathing in ragweed right now, while your body's going through this several days of like, oh, I'm supposed to be told that's an enemy. Right now, I've just triggered the system, say, you're under attack, create antibodies to this. But if I'm eating cheese at that moment, if I'm eating eggs at that moment, if I'm breathing ragweed at that moment, my body's going, oh, my enemy, and starts creating all sorts of unnecessary immune responses to things that could be just environmental, not a part of the vaccine. Is that sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like his analogy after, they had their conversation about aluminum. First of all, aluminum in your body. Continue recording, recover broadcast. Thank you. That's funny how that came up again. That came up in my last studio when I was talking too, and our broadcast was cut short because that came up, and I think I hit the wrong button. But that's funny how that came up again as we're having this discussion today. Looked like something was trying to stop the show, but we'll see. I know many people affected by the solution. Breaks my heart for sure. Same sad and maddening for sure. And good morning, Andrew. Thanks for being on. Appreciate all your comments. And I know, I think we had a comment here that Brett Weinstein is an evolutionary biologist. So just to make sure we get that correct, right? But then the host's analogy about a computer software, which basically allows anything to come in. Once you're given this solution, it's like giving a program that then opens you up to any virus that can come in at that time and wreak havoc on your computer, which I think was a great analogy, because that's what this particular solution did. You got it, and now you're susceptible to anything in a short period of time. And he was saying there should have been like a warning, like, hey, when you get this, make sure to not be around things that could possibly affect you and your immune system. But no, nothing was given, even though you see these commercials for pharmaceuticals and things that have these long list of things. Make sure not, could cause this, could cause that. Make sure not to do this, make sure not to do that. People were given the solution, and they were basically just saying, okay, go, just take it. And that's all you need, because it is safe and effective. That's all we heard, basically. That's all the narrative that we were told, even though it's way more complicated than that. And joining this conversation is the former CDC director, which you also provided the video for that. And so the former CDC director, which is the, what does it stand for in the United States? It's the same as our
Center for Disease Control.
Disease Control, right? It's their authoritative body in the United States that oversees any medical decisions that the country kind of undertakes. So this is the former CDC director speaking about now what we know, basically, right? And he's talking to, of all people,
Chris Cuomo.
Chris Cuomo. There
I
you
mean, I
go.
was upset with CDC when I left because they stopped tracking people that were infected that were previously vaccinated. So if you
Why?
didn't track it, well, because then you couldn't report that there were people vaccinated that got infected.
But no, wait, why did they stop tracking it?
But I think there was a decision not to do anything that made the vaccine sound like it didn't work. You know, I've always tried to be honest that I think there was some major mistakes in the vaccines. They should have never been mandated. I also felt that people should have been more honest about the fact that there were side effects to those vaccines, and some people were actually harmed. The other thing, I thought there should be, more honesty about the fact that the vaccines don't protect against infection. I remember Biden saying, this is an epidemic of the unvaccinated. When I was Hogan's chief public health advisor in Maryland after I left CDC, I was saying, wait a minute, 2/3 of the people that I'm seeing infected in Maryland have been vaccinated. I mean, the President of the United States said it. Biden said this was an epidemic of the unvaccinated. Tony wasn't aggressive in putting this in perspective. The CDC didn't put it in perspective. The reality is this vaccine, listen, it's a short duration in which this vaccine provides some efficacy, maybe 4 to 6 months max. If you came down and visited me and interviewed my patients, you'd interview patient after patient after patient that did not have COVID, but are very sick,
Right.
You would say very sick long COVID patients, and it's all from the vaccine. Now, what is it, Chris? Well, it's the spike protein is immunotoxic, all right? When you get infected, it's immunotoxic. But when you give the vaccine, we make the spike protein. Now, this is my opinion, okay? When I give you an mRNA vaccine, which I helped develop, and I've given to a lot of patients, and I've taken it myself multiple times, I don't know how much spike protein you make.
Right.
Because I give you mRNA, and then your body makes it.
Right.
So you make a little, you may make a lot. You may make it for a week, you may make it for a month. I'm now more of the point of view, and I wish the country would switch more rapidly. I'm more of the point of view, and in my clinical practice, I use the protein vaccine. So I know exactly how much spike protein you get. Your body's not becoming a manufacturing plant.
Right.
Okay? I give you a certain amount of spike protein that's not able to replicate, not able to reproduce itself, and I know the decay curve in the human body, and that's the vaccine I use now. It's made by Novavax. I think it's, in my view, it doesn't have all the nuances that we don't understand about those individuals that looks like there's prolonged production or impact or negative consequence from spike protein in some people that get the mRNA vaccine. It's still rare, but it's real.
Okay, now my mouse just decided to just stop working all of a sudden on my studio. So let's see, we'll just use this. How about that? And it can't stop us. So there you go. I don't need a mouse right now. I'm just going to use my touch screen and we're good to go. So there. Can't stop the show. Anyways, so there's the experts. Remember we were told trust the experts? Would you say that someone who's the head of the CDC, for I don't know how many years he was, but it's the fact that he was the head of the CDC, would you consider that an expert or not?
Yeah, and I don't know if he would be high enough at that point that, say he came forward with that information at that time, because there was incredibly high-level people. But again, there just seems some force incredibly high up, like I guess kind of the World Health Organization, the WHO, like they seem to be, again, we talked about, you know, they seem to have a level up on the countries of the world in their setups and their systems. So
yeah. Well, Jerome is chiming in. Good morning, AJ and Billy. So I stimulated my immune system through utilizing natural medicine and beat fourth stage cancer, throat cancer. We are biochemical, bioelectric, biomechanical entities that should use petrochemical pharmaceuticals in time of health crisis and trauma. Back away from the allopath. You got that? Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyone who can beat that should know a thing or two about something.
yeah, I would tend to agree.
And so anyways, so here we have two experts, right? We have an evolutionary biologist who wrote a book saying this is one of the medical feats of history, is creating this, these solutions. And then saying, whoa, well, wait a minute. The fact that we're doing it in the way that we are, there's something wrong here, something sinister, even evil, if you will.
And he was censored when he started coming up with that too. He had to go on Rumble or BitChute to see him,
sure,
say any of that stuff.
And this is my point. Experts, we were told, listen to the medical experts. But the problem was certain medical experts were only given the ability to speak. Other medical experts were not. And so in our own country, we can see this happening. And you say, yeah, but if it was real, the CBC would have told us about it. And you know what I mean? So here's part of the National Citizens Inquiry, where a former CBC journalist and former other journalists, very long pedigree of journalism this journalist has in Canada, telling you a little bit of what was going on at the time. So we'll just catch this in mid-flight. Hopefully it's at the right spot. But pay attention to what happened here in Canada with our media and how our media was involved with this.
Working as a reporter and some of the stories you tried to run and what happened. So I'm wondering if you can just start into that, and then if we need any clarifications or that, I'll jump in.
Okay. Before I get into that, I think there's a little bit of background that's required. I know that as a public broadcaster, you expect us to be telling you the truth, and we'd stop doing that. And there was another number of stories that I had put forward that were blocked. But it seemed to me, as a journalist who'd been there 34 years, it's like the rules had changed overnight. And it changed so quickly that it left me just dizzy in disbelief. I was blocked and prevented from doing stories that I'd pitched, that I'd put forward. They never saw the light of day. They never made it to air or print. And some of those stories were protests against vaccine mandates, people's safety concerns about the vaccines, and also the many problems with reporting adverse reactions in Canada. And for me, what was so disorienting about this was that, I had learned from the best of the best at the CBC. This is where I learned to think critically and fearlessly hold power to account, to break stories and uncover information that you, the public, has a right to know. And I also would like to mention that the newsroom I worked in CBC Manitoba, that they were a leader in investigative journalism across the entire network, second only to Toronto. And this was a newsroom that produced award-winning stories that sparked change at the highest level of corporations and government. By the time I left in December of 2021, I no longer recognized the CBC. And I really didn't think my career would end this way, that the skills I learned and honed at the CBC would be used to hold power to account within the corporation.
Can I just slow you down? Because I think it's important for people to understand what you're saying, and especially because you were working as a journalist and then as an investigative reporter for much of the 34 years. So my understanding is that when you're a senior reporter like yourself, you can just follow a story, like, okay, I'm going to report on this, and you can do the story, and generally speaking, you're not second-guessed or your story isn't changed. So your experience in learning from true journalists in the past was just to run a story, to be fair, and that was your experience until COVID hit.
Absolutely. I would say, like, prior to COVID, I was expected to come into that editorial meeting. I would have 2 or 3 original stories, what we call enterprising journalism, original stories, and I was able to work on those unless there was big breaking news that day. But normally I would be assigned that story, given the time, and within a day or two I could turn those stories around on all 3 platforms, radio, TV, and web. And I would also like to mention that I had 1 producer vetting for TV and radio, and rarely were there any changes made in my script or the content. And for web, it was another producer, but it was minor things like, let's move this sentence, let's change this word, we'll tighten the lead. That was prior to COVID.
So, and I'll just follow up on that again, because I think it's important for people to understand. So basically your stories were standing as you made them.
Absolutely. And they backed me in doing that. I was supported in doing it. That's what they wanted, original, enterprising journalism.
Okay, and so that ties into when you're saying the Manitoba News Desk at the CBC prior to COVID. I mean, that was a hardcore journalistic news desk. They were expecting you to get, truthful, fair stories, and they were not censoring, they were wanting the news.
That's the way it was prior to COVID.
Okay, and so COVID, that was a completely new ballgame when COVID hit. So even the swine flu, because we experienced that, during your career.
Yes.
None of this. It just started with COVID.
No, it changed so quick that it left me spinning. And I mean, the way I saw it. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a synopsis, and then I'll get into specifics in terms of what was done with my stories. But that we betrayed the public. We broke their trust. And we had been riding on a reputation of excellence for years, and now we were quickly shutting down one side of the debate. And how were we doing that? We branded the doctors and the experts the CBC chose that we used in our stories. We branded them as competent and trustworthy, and those who questioned and challenged the narrative were portrayed as dangerous and spreading disinformation. And that was regardless of what their specialty was, what their background was, and what their experience was. And I just also want to sort of give you a window into how this affected me personally. As a veteran journalist, I had solid contacts in the community. I had people calling me with stories. So I was seeing and I was hearing and I was absorbing all their stories of suffering and pain, and they were sharing them with me, and these stories weren't being told. Some of those were from the vaccine injured. Some were from people who had lost their job because of their vaccination status, those whose families had been blown apart and they'd been ostracized, university students who were depressed over repeated lockdowns and mandates, and parents who were calling me that were agonizing on whether they should vaccinate their child or not. So all these stories were sitting inside of me, they were left with me, and I felt the crushing burden and the weight of their truth not being given a voice. And it affected my well-being because these people trusted me, and I felt I had failed them and I had let them down.
So can I just interject? So when you're a journalist and people are coming to you with stories that should be reported, you're feeling a responsibility to give voice to those stories, but you're not being allowed to do so for the first time, and that's what was causing the distress internally.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was losing sleep. It was distressing. It was like I had failed these people as a journalist to give voice to their truth. So I had witnessed in a very short time the collapse of journalism, news gathering, investigative reporting, and the way I saw it is that we were in fact pushing propaganda. And to define propaganda, it's information, ideas, opinions, or images that give one part of an argument, which are broadcast, published, in order to influence a person's opinion. And mental health workers have their own definition of propaganda as manipulative persuasion in the service of an agenda. In a published article written by a former CBC editor-in-chief in 2018, she outlines what's called the journalistic standards and practices. And these are the most fundamental principles that govern who we are as journalists and who we are as a public broadcaster. Basically, these are the pillars, the holy grail for journalists. This is what every story we do can be measured against these. And they are accuracy, fairness, balance, impartiality, and integrity. She goes on to say that the JSP is not merely a guide for the people who work at CBC Radio Canada. It's a key component of our promise to Canadians that the work we do is first and foremost a public service. Then she says, the real test, of course, is ensuring that our journalism is credible, reliable, and worthy of your trust. So in other words, you, the audience, decide if we're trustworthy, if we're telling the truth. It's not up to us to hammer you with what we define, decide, or think that the truth is, because the pillars of balance and fairness require us to present both sides, and after you examine them, you ultimately decide what the truth is. She says you can hold CBC News accountable against the principles that are laid out in the journalistic standards and practices. In my last year and a half at the CBC, we violated all of them. Not only had we shut down one side by silencing and discrediting anyone opposing the narrative, we had elevated and designated ourselves as the gatekeeper of the truth. We no longer believed our audience was capable of critically thinking for themselves.
So I'm going to leave that there because it does go on, and you can search it up yourself. You'd have to probably go to rumble.com. It's a video site similar to YouTube. It's not as censored as YouTube. You just type in NCI testimonies, I guess, into Rumble, and you can see all kinds. But this particular one is pretty damning, and it goes to show that as I was learning journalism in communications in college and in university, I was going through this in real time as I was learning these particular principles that she was just talking about, and then not seeing it and seeing the opposite that was going on, especially with our state-sponsored media. It was very perplexing to me. While we had professors saying, "Oh no, journalists of the highest integrity, they would never, be found producing propaganda or things like that." And I was like, wait a minute, that's all I hear. That's all I'm hearing on the news is propaganda. As from what I'm learning in school, it's the opposite. So it was like I was in some kind of just bizarre universe or something that didn't make any sense. So here you have an insider from CBC saying exactly what I was thinking. And from the very news source. So it was not me saying it. This is somebody who went to school for journalism, did journalism for over 30 years in Canada, and noticed the change that took place. And it's very much so like that to this day. Any closing thoughts, Billy?
Oh, we're just going through the big reveal, I think.
Yeah, you've said that things are going to hit the fan at some point. All things are going to come to light. And I was hoping that would be the case, that the powers that be, the few that we talk about on the show that make the decisions for the many, that they, I don't know, are they going to be held accountable at some point? How will that look? Who's going to hold them accountable? These types of things, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think you got to parse it out, though. If you have a big overload, it's going to be too much at once, and it's like, use the example of like a sting operation. You can't arrest everybody at once because then, it reveals there's a big arrest and a whole bunch of people flee, or there's a fight back, a pushback. So it's kind of like, you one at a time, you just sort of bring them in and you tell them, you play for our team now, here's how it's going to go.
Yes, and you are very optimistic and hopeful on that front. And so I'm hoping things will go exactly the way that you are hoping as well. It's all the time we got today. I hope that the show was at least somewhat educational, or we can take something away from it. We crammed a lot of information into a short period of time, so I'm just glad we were able to get through it, and thankful that I was able to do it here with Billy.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you, Billy. And thank all of y'all for being on today. We really appreciate you. And thanks for being so respectful in the comments with something that is this divisive of a conversation, of a topic. So we really appreciate everybody. Hopefully we're all learning something each and every day about the world that we live in and try and make sense of a very complicated and getting more complicated world. So stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU, and make sure to check us out on demand if you haven't seen the show live on any of our social medias, and make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow all of them to get the word out. We really appreciate a lot of the new people we had on the show today. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully you're with us same time, same place tomorrow on the same platform. So with all of that, have a safe Thursday and an enjoyable evening until we see you again tomorrow. Ciao, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.